This is factor 2, cash. It's hard for me to say that word and not have a big smile on my face. We're going to talk about the income statement in this lesson. We're going to demystify it so you can find a way to make sure you learn how to make it work for you. In the next lesson, we're going to talk about cash management. The fatal flaw I often observe in working with small business people around cash and money is fear. It's a fear of the numbers, a fear of math, and a fear of accounting. Maybe you're a good baker, but you don't really like the numbers. You're a good software programmer, but you don't really like dollars and numbers. I run into it all the time. Many successful entrepreneurs, matter of fact, most of the successful entrepreneurs that I know have never had an accounting class. They weren't experts either. It's not a requirement for success. But the income statement has 5 elements that you need to understand, and we're going to make sure that happens in this lesson. We're going to talk about how to create an income statement. Secondly, how to use it to make good decisions. And finally, and most importantly, we're going to use it to do scenario planning, which is what-if analysis, so you're ready for anything that can come towards your business. That's leadership. If you're like me, you start your business, you collect a few other people who have joined you to help you do more business, and sooner or later, when you're successful, money starts to come in and money has to start going out. That's accounting. But none of us are accountants. So you're working, and usually one person who's willing or draws the short straw agrees to start keeping track of the money. There's a stage when you don't need anyone full-time. We've all been through that. And then eventually, you'll need a part-time accountant or an accounting firm. Sooner or later, you'll need to bring somebody in full-time that has expertise in one thing, which is accounting and managing the money. But no matter where you are in that spectrum, from one person to 15 or 20 people, you need to understand the 5 elements of the income statement. So let's talk about that. First of all, income statement. Many people call that the P&L, which is short for profit and loss. We look at the first line of that statement, it's revenue. By that, I put a smiley face because this is one of the greatest things in the world. This is money that's coming to you. This is when you get to sign the back of a check, or you need to make a deposit. It's money coming in. People call it the top line because it's at the top line on the income statement. It could be cash moving over the counter. It could be a check that someone hands you or sends you in the mail, or it could be a credit card transaction. No matter what, it's all good. I put a smiley face by it because this is money moving in your direction. It's going to enable you to do things that you need to do in your business. The second line is cost of revenue. In some cases, this is called cost of goods sold. That's typically when something is made or manufactured. So if you have a bakery, it's the flour, it's the sugar, it's the chocolate chips, and the people who put those things together, that labor, you put them together, that's called cost of goods sold. You'll also see cost of sales. These are usually in a service business where you have people who go out and do things for you that your customers are willing to pay for. Maybe you run a photography business and you go out and you take pictures. This is the cost of the people who go out and actually take those pictures. I combine them and just call it cost of revenue because it covers both of those situations. By that, I put a sad face because it's a cost. This is where you're going to have to sign the front of a check. And I know you may love the people that work for you, but I still think you should be a little bit sad anytime you sign the front of a check. The next line is gross profit. You get there with subtraction. You take revenue minus cost of revenue, and you get gross profit. I put a happy face by that because this is something positive, provided it's a positive number. So we've got our happy face with revenue, sad face for cost of revenue, and our happy face for gross profit. If it's not a happy face, it means it's a negative number. You want to stop there. You've got a serious problem. There's not enough revenue, or your costs are simply too high to stay in business. Underneath that, our fourth item is overhead. These are the costs of doing business. It might be your office space. It might be your telecommunications cost. It might be your utility bill. It might be your electric bill. Money that you might pay to a tax accountant or a tax preparer. Money you might pay an attorney. These are necessary costs, but they aren't required to actually directly deliver what your customers need. So we call them overhead. I put a sad face by those things because, again, you're signing on the front of a check. Finally, we have operating profit. We get operating profit by subtracting overhead from our gross profit. I put a smiley face by that, assuming that's a positive number. That's your 5-line income statement. I like to sometimes add arrows just to help you know how to manage day to day, because that's why it's important. I put an up arrow by revenue. You want it to be as high as possible. A down arrow by cost of revenue. An up arrow for gross profit. A down arrow on overhead. And an up arrow on operating profit. You're working hard to grow your revenue, and you're working hard to keep your cost of revenue and your overhead as low as possible. Now, I'm about to bring in some numbers, so I'd like you to exhale and relax. Here they come. Let's take a look at the month of January. This business has $100,000 in revenue, $50,000 in cost of revenue, and $50,000 in gross profit. It's a good situation. Our gross profit is actually 50% of revenue. That's going to be good in any business. Now let's take a look at our overhead. It's $15,000. In this case, our overhead is 15% of the revenue. That too is a good situation. Generally speaking, you want overhead to be less than 15% of your revenue. Finally, we get operating profit, $35,000. It's a good situation. We have a smiley face. That's the income statement for our business in the month of January. Let's take a look at another income statement. Let's say Microsoft. As you can see, that income statement is 2 pages long, but it all reduces down to the same 5 lines. I find that to be amazing. I guarantee you that the CFO of Microsoft looks at the sheet and looks at the 5 key elements and then goes to get further detail. If we continue looking into the future, our business going forward, we have February, we had March. You can see this business is doing great. Our top line revenue has gone up to $200,000 and then $300,000. Our costs have gone up. That makes sense. Now, in order to do more good things for our customers, our costs have to grow too. But at the bottom, we're happy. We are going up to $70,000 and then $105,000. Now, I'd like to talk about scenario planning. This is where we're looking forward in our business, which we always want to do. That's our job as leaders. If you're like me, you do this late at night. You don't have time to do it in the day. We believe you do the best case, the middle case, and the worst case scenario. And I have a saying, the worst case scenario has to be more than acceptable. So with our best case scenario, let's add 3 more months. We've got April, May, and June. As you can see, the revenue goes up to $400,000, goes up to $500,000, and then plateaus at that level. So our growth has plateaued. It's actually a good time to catch your breath. And what we're thinking about is, will this continue? And can we manage our costs? Because when you're growing this fast, there's pressure on costs because you're having to buy things quickly. You can't shop as long. Even when you have to hire someone very, very quickly, you're probably going to pay them a little more, especially when you find a good person, because you need them to take care of your customer. So you find in periods of high growth, your costs grow a little faster than your revenue. You just want to be aware of that. Your middle case, we're looking forward at the months of April, May, and June. You can see now our revenue went from $300,000 in March to $300,000 in April, and then it started to go down. This too is natural. We had fast growth and it tapered down a bit. We're not sad because still our revenue in May and June is $250,000. That's a lot more than the $100,000 in the first month of January. This is a good situation. What we have to do here is work very hard at cost management, and we have to be a little bit paranoid that, is this trend going to continue? Is the revenue going to start to go down? So we manage our costs, and we're a bit paranoid. Next, our worst case scenario. This is the most important one of all. So in the case that we're using, we have $300,000 of revenue in the month of April, and then it falls in half to $150,000 in May and $150,000 in June. This is a tough situation, quite common, usually occurs because we had too much business with one customer. So you love that customer, but if they go away, it can do this to your business. It can cut it in half. Your customer can go away just like that, but you can't cut your costs just like that. So there's usually an overhang from the prior time period. It's a painful overhang. It makes your profit go down. In this case, it actually made our profit negative. question I'm often asked is, in the worst case scenario, what can you do? What should you do? When you're running into that situation where revenue drops off, the most important thing to do is to be able to turn your cost off. I can't tell you how many times I work with companies and I meet and we're looking at the worst case scenario because it's happening. And I say, you've got to stop spending money. And they go, got it, we're gonna stop. A few days later, you look at the financials, find out money is still being spent because it's hard to stop it. Sometimes several people have a credit card or several people can order something online. It's just hard to turn it off. There's a lot of spigots in every business, but you have to be able to turn them off. Secondly, be very careful about entering long-term cost agreements. For example, if I can enter a lease for 1 month or 3 months, I'll take that over a year so I can be flexible. If I'm gonna hire a person for 3 months or 6 months over a year, I'm gonna take the 3 or 6 months until I know exactly what's going on in my business. I want all my costs to be flexible. If you're flexible and your costs are flexible, you can turn them on and off, you can survive absolutely anything. But if you have a lot of overhead, that can take your business under. I'm often asked, is the best case scenario, middle case, worst case, all about your top line? I think it is. Because I think if you've got the concept of making sure that your costs move with your revenue, you're gonna be fine. There are 5 key elements to the income statement. We've gone through them. You've survived it. I suggest you get out a blank sheet of paper or open up Excel, or better yet, look on the website. We have an app just for you that will help you lay out your income statement and do this scenario planning so you can do your own best case, middle case, or worst case. Once a week, if things are tough, you come face to face with your income statement. You want to look at it. Don't hand it to anyone else, especially when you're small. You need to understand it so you can feel it throughout the day. When things calm down, you've kind of got stable profits and stable cash, you want to come face to face with your income statement month to month. After you do this work, you might find that you're not profitable. Join the club. It happens. I haven't met a successful entrepreneur yet who hasn't gone through a period of not being profitable. You can survive it. You're doing the work right now to make sure you're going to survive it, and you'll be a much better business person as a result. I will see you on the network.